We haven't crashed at least 50% of the field by the end of the race. We need to extend the race till we at least crash 50% of the cars, because it's not fair to these fans for them to not see any more wrecks than that and more tore up cars. I mean, we still had over half the cars running at the end, and it shouldn't be that way. I don't think any of the wrecks were an overheating issue. That's why I say I think we ought to just tape them off solid and run them until they blow up anyway. I think it'd make it a lot more exciting for the fans. If we don't crash half of the field by the end of the race, they really need to extend it, because I mean, that's what the fans want. They want to see that excitement. I'm upset that we didn't crash more cars. I mean, I feel like that's what we need. You know, that's what we're here for. I mean, and I feel bad if I don't spend at least $150,000 and tore up race cars going back to the shop. So we definitely got to do a better job of that. It would have been a lot more fun if I could have got caught up in one more wreck. If I could have done that, it would have been perfect. I mean, I think if we could make it a figure eight, it'd be perfect. It would absolutely be perfect here. It'd be better than what we got. So that's going to be my vote next week, is that we make it a figure eight, and/or we can go stop at the halfway, make a break, and turn around, go backwards the rest of the way. And then with 10 to go, we'll split the field in half, and half of them can go the regular direction, and half of them can go backwards.
I think Tony Stewart's sarcastic comments from 2012 really sums up how many people feel about today's race show. I don't know what you can really call it. The 2020 Busch Clash, as many people are calling it, the Busch Crash, as said by Mike Joy at the end of the race. Where to start with this one? Let's start with the most bipolar race in history. Last season, I called Speed Weeks the most bipolar Speed Weeks in history. Reason for that was we saw it in the 2019 Clash. They went single file the whole race, and then we had a monstrous crash at the end of that race. To add onto that, the Thursday duels were single file basically throughout. And then we had the Truck Series race, which was a crash test then the Xfinity race, which went single file, then the Cup race, which was actually good, but then turned into a crash test at the end of the race. Well, I think this race was maybe just the most bipolar just race in history. What we saw today was nothing short of a shit show, and I wouldn't say a good race, maybe good entertainment, but in terms of racing, no. I've seen a lot better super speedway racing than what I saw here today. It fit the Clash narrative for sure. It kind of overpassed the Clash narrative actually. So to kick off this race review, the first however many laps were basically single file. And you can't really get mad about it. Well, at least I'm not getting mad about it, because the race is so long. It is 75 laps. There's no points on the line for stages or anything. So why would you go out there and race 3 wide and wreck your race car in lap 18 of 75 in an exhibition race, which you only need to win? Like, as long as you're around the end and you win the race, you get the trophy and you get the money. If you're leading or going for the lead in lap 20, it's not getting you anything. So there's really no reason to do anything in the first 50 laps of the race, which is why, in my opinion, they need to shorten the race. I said this last year. 75 laps is way too long for a super speedway exhibition race. It needs to be like 30 at most, maybe 40. Other than like if you have to make a green flag pit stop, it's too long. In my opinion, you shouldn't have to make a green flag pit stop unless maybe NASCAR wants to say, hey, you need to make a green flag pit stop during the race. Like you need to make at least a 2 or 4 tire green flag pit stop like they used to do. So they went single file for the whole first segment of the race, which was typical, normal, was seen coming. There was no need to do anything else. They come down pit road, and cars are laps short on fuel. They get single file again, and the Chevys are going to try and make it to the end of the race on fuel by running like half throttle trying to save fuel. So 10 cars come down pit road, leads 8 cars out on the racetrack, 7 Chevys, and the lone Ford of Joey Logano. Well, these drivers are now out there basically running half to 3/4 of throttle, trying to save fuel, trying to make it to the end of the race. All the while, the second pack is not only, you know, a few cars bigger than that pack, but it's also now gaining in, and they're racing side by side and they're gaining. Then they get single file and they're gaining even faster. The gap one lap went from 7 seconds down to 4 seconds, which was absolutely insane. So now the second pack's there. Joey Logano's leading the first pack. The Chevy's lined up behind. Some guys just get out of the way and they're like, okay, we just want to fall to the back of this pack and try and save fuel back here. Others decide to try and block down low and, try and make some moves to stay out at the front. One of those being Joey Logano. Now, Kyle Busch is getting a huge run. He slices under Logano. Logano tries to cut him off. They make contact. They hit. They get down to Hamlin. They almost have it saved, but Busch comes back at the racetrack, spins Logano around, and collects Brad Keselowski. So those three go into the wall. It's our first real yellow flag of the 2020 Busch Clash. So those three cars are really the only ones that got major damage. Denny Hamlin, well, I guess Hamlin's damage was pretty major. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And Jimmy Johnson got some front nose damage. So then, whatever, they do the cleanup, and then this is where the race just starts to go downhill. We take the green flag, and all but like 4 cars pile up before the start-finish line. Now, what happened, no one really knows. All we know is that Ryan Newman and William Byron hit the gas to go, and their cars just took off. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was like they hit black ice. The car just took off, spun around into the pack, collected others like Truex and basically the whole field. My presumption, it looked like Brad Keselowski, when he was involved in the last crash, his car was destroyed. It looked like he stopped past the tri-oval. I'm wondering if he went through there and some oil got laid down. That's the only thing I can really think of, that maybe there was some oil over there that got laid down. I mean, I don't really know what to think of other than that. So whatever, that's fine. So all while this is happening, Denny Hamlin is out in front. Hamlin was involved in the first crash of the race. As Kyle Busch and others came down, they hit Hamlin. Hamlin has some pretty major right rear damage. It looks like the tire's rubbing, the Goodyear is worn off, the tire, it's just not great. It doesn't look great. But Hamlin and crew chief decide we have to stay out. I don't want to go back there and pit, and then we'll have to come through the field. I feel like we'll be in a better position to win if we stay out and we stay first, or we stay in control of the race. Hamlin was like, I agree. And he said, but, if it doesn't make it back, come meet me in the Airfield Care Center in 5 minutes. And it was a big joke. So then, so that last restart where they all crashed was with 3 to go. Now it's overtime, 2 to go. We take the green flag. We're going down. Chase Elliott lines up behind Denny Hamlin. He is giving him major shots down the backstretch. It nearly spins the 11 multiple times down the backstretch. They get off into turn number 3. Hamlin goes down low. Chase stays up top. And Hamlin's car takes off. Right around it goes. He blows the tire. Up into the pack. Chase Elliott gets the wall. Gets into Boyer. Austin Dillon does an amazing job saving his car. He did basically a Kyle Busch save in the 2012 Bud Shootout, except he was missing a crash while doing it. And the whole field gets taken out. I mean, Jimmy Johnson. It's the picture of it's the picture you're seeing right now. Jimmy Johnson, Kurt Busch, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano again, Kevin Harvick. I mean, basically everyone was involved in this. The only cars that got away were Chase Elliott, Clint Boyer, Austin Dillon, Kyle Larson, and then Hamlin still drove away. Eric Jones drove away, but these cars were seriously damaged. They were all torn up. Chase Elliott, because he got on the wall, has a flat tire, so he comes down pit road. We go green. There's I think there's 5 cars on the lead lap. There's 5 cars on the lead lap. It's Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, Kyle Larson, Ryan Newman, and Eric Jones are on the lead lap, and Denny Hamlin's still at the racetrack. There are 6 cars right now on the racetrack. There are 5 on the lead lap. Let me just mention this again. There are 6 race cars on the lead lap. 6. A single-digit number. 6 on the racetrack. Down the backstretch, Chase Elliott pushes Kyle Larson clear. They get clear 1 and 2. Chase tries to go on the outside, I think, of Larson, but then thinks better of it. He then slices under. Larson comes down with him. They make contact. They hit. Up the racetrack they go, and they're in the wall. They're wrecked. So we get a wreck with 6 cars on the racetrack, 5 of which were running. 5 of which were actually running. Hamlin was just off the pace, hoping for yellow so he could get back in the lead lap. He was 2 laps down at this point. So that's another yellow. We're now down. Chase Elliott's out of the race. We are down to Austin Dillon, Ryan Newman, Kyle Larson, and Eric Jones. I don't think I'm missing anyone. And then Denny Hamlin a lap down. So there's 6 or 5 cars on the racetrack or something stupid like that. one of my favorite parts was I was listening to the scanner because NASCAR got rid of race view, so I decided to just listen to scanner. I was listening to the official radio, and so whenever someone takes two to go, they come down from race control. Someone comes down from race control and says starter, white flag next time by for car number whatever number is leading. They normally do that. And on restarts, they do that. Like if they take the green flag with two to go, if it's like an overtime or a two to go restart, they go starter, white flag next time by for the whoever's leading, and then the starter goes confirmed, white flag next time by for this driver. Um, so after the restart wreck, we go to that overtime, and they're taking the green flag, and the person goes starter, white flag next time by if there's no yellow, which I thought was really funny because like I just thought it was really funny, like if there's no yellow, and then they had the yellow. So then the next restart they go starter, white flag next time by if there's no yellow, which was really really funny. They did it a few times. Finally we get to the end of the race. Austin Dillon gets passed and then gets passed again, then gets back by and then gets passed, and then Eric Jones goes to the lead, but then falls back. But Denny Hamlin, his teammate, who is one lap down, pushes Jones all the way down the backstretch. They tandem all the way down the backstretch, get around the outside Newman, and Eric Jones wins the Busch Clash in a car which looks very reminiscent of Terry Labonte's 1995 car. So, how did I feel about the race? It wasn't much of a race, I'll be honest. When they weren't riding single file, they were basically wrecking, is what it was. So either they have to change the Busch Clash to where it is shorter, which is never going to happen. I don't think a network is ever going to let that happen. Or they need to just, I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know. It's so hard to say what to do. I would say shorten the race so it's not like that. Or just get rid of it altogether. Because honestly, at this point, it's just like I don't know. Like at this point, it's just a test session for teams, and you just try to get out of there, with a race car. It's just a huge money pit now for teams. I actually would not be surprised if some teams, like in the next few seasons, if they like win a pole and they're in it. I'd not be surprised if a few teams just went, nah, we're not doing it. Or if they just go in and then they park it early to get their sponsors some TV time, and then they park it. Like I honestly would not be surprised if some like smaller teams, like if JTG, like obviously now if Stenhouse stays with the JTG Doherty Racing, they'll obviously be in next year's Busch Clash. I wouldn't be surprised if like they decide they don't want to because they don't have enough money, because they tear them up, which isn't really cool. I miss the days of super speedway racing. Like honestly, this has always been a thing with the Clash, where like they'll crash a few times. It's the Clash. They don't have anything to lose. You're just going out there for the wins. That's the whole beauty of it. They go out there and race really hard and aggressively because you really have nothing to lose other than maybe your body or another race car, but it was gonna be the backup anyway. So like, really, there's gonna be a crash or two. We have to know that going in. But there are some like Bud shootouts and Busch clashes back in like the 90s and the early 2000s and the late 2000s where like they would go out there and they wouldn't crash a lot. You just kind of go there and be like, oh, whatever. That they went there and they had a good race with like 18 cars. Now you go and you get a race with 18 cars and then they have to ride single file because it's so long, and at the end of the race they can barely control themselves from wrecking. This kind of like, still think last year's was worse, but like this year's was just kind of. You ever had that moment where like you go see a movie and it's so bad that you like laugh and you think it's good, or you hear a joke that's so bad but you laugh because it's so bad? This was a race where it was so bad you had to laugh at it. Like it was one of those. Like it was terrible. I'm not gonna go as far as saying it's a black eye for the sport because it's not really. I would say it gives the people who say it's just turning left, that gives them a more valid argument, because honestly, with what I saw today, they have an argument because they could not go flat out around they could barely make it single file, and people want them to go three wide for 75 straight laps. It's just not going to work out. So overall, though, I mean, NASCAR did make some improvements with the Clash this year. For a while there, the eligibility rules were so just like thick that anyone could get in at any moment. It used to be like, oh, all the playoff drivers, and then all the pole winners, and then Daytona 500 pole winners, and then if you sat in the front row for the Daytona 500 ever, hey, you're also invited. Hey, if you ever won a Daytona 500, you're invited. If you ever won a Busch Clash, you're invited. And then if we still don't have enough people, the next highest people in points get in, which I thought was pretty stupid. Um, so I think what they have right now is a good number of people. We had 18 cars here today, which is a good number. It's basically half. It's half of the charter teams. So that's a good number. It's technically an all-star race, and I don't want to see 28 cars out there in an all-star race. I just want to see you know just the people who deserve to be there go out and race. I don't want to see a lot of cars. I feel like that kind of takes away from it. It makes it less special, if you feel me. If you feel that sentiment. Where it's kind of just like you don't really feel you don't feel glorified about making it. Like if there's 28 people out there, you're not being like, oh, I'm part of the Busch Clash. This is so cool. You're just like, oh, it's another race. There's 28 people out there. If you're part of a group of 18, you're like, I'm special. I'm something special. Um, something like that. So I think that's cool. Them renaming it to the Busch Clash. The original. That's awesome. That's cool. Um, and then them starting it during the day. I don't know how I feel about that. I still like it at night. It kind of has like a night feel to it, but whatever. But I still think they need to go back to shortening it. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen because of TV networks. Um, so overall, race was not good. Um, good show, I guess. Good demo derby. Um, hopefully the 500 isn't like this. Hopefully the super speedway races aren't like this season because remember Daytona decides who's in the playoffs this year because that makes sense in NASCAR's eyes. Well, it does because it's a show, so it'll put on the best show for the casual fans. The fans that once again the fans they're not chasing, but they're going to do stuff to make the casual fans happy. Um, so you know I still think, fight me all you want, but the best Super Speedway package that they used in the Gen 6 car was the 2014 package. That thing was racy, and they didn't crash all the time. With this package, right, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a thing that the drivers need to control, but they're never going to learn. They're never going to learn with this type of package. So the spoilers are so damn high, and they're going so damn fast, right? It punches a huge hole in the air. You get massive runs. Like, remember those runs that they're getting with the Wicker Bill in the early 2000s, like the late 2000, early 2001 races there? Like those super speedway races, how big of runs they would get with that Wicker Bill on the top. It's bigger than that. As a Wicker Bill on the spoiler, it gets bigger runs. It's huge hole in the air, right? Meant to slow the cars down because they're going so fast without the Wicker Bill on it. They're getting huge runs now because of that. Um, in my opinion, at some points the runs are just too big. Drivers try to block it. They're always going to try and block it because you don't want to fall behind. And, you want to have the lead at the end of the race because you never know what might happen second and third. They might start jostling for position, and then you'll just come out of it with the win. You don't want to ever lose the lead because it might be so hard to get it back. But, there are some blocks that are unblockable with this package. They just get such big runs. That's why I liked it when it was like the 2014 package, for example, right? You go back and watch the Daytona 500, the Aaron's 499, not really the Coke 0400 because that race was bad, and then go watch the Geico 500, right? Watch those 3 plate races from 2014. The leader was not at a disadvantage, but it wasn't really an advantage either. It was more like if you're the leader, you can still block the runs, but they can also get some really big runs to where you can't block it, and you can still pass the leader when they're out there, and then even on top of that, you're getting big runs, you're able to pass other people, able to make it 3 wide, make passes there, under control, they're not wrecking a lot, in the 2014 Daytona 500, we had a few mini ones, in the Geico 500, I don't think they ever had a big crash, or in the Aaron's 499, excuse me, they never really had a big crash. I mean, what was the biggest crash in that race? I don't really remember. And then I guess there were a few mini ones like the Daytona 500. And then the Geico 500, the biggest wreck they had there was the wreck on the backstretch with Kyle Busch and Tony Stewart. So there weren't really they didn't really wreck a lot under that package. Like they had some big ones, which is normally expected out of Super Speedway Racing. It's always like, when's the big one going to happen? There's always going to be a big one. There's always going to be some sort of wreck, which is typical. They're running 3 wide, 3x3 at 200 plus miles an hour in a small pack, close quarters racing. There's going to be a crash, and that's evident. This is NASCAR racing. There's going to be bumping and banging. There's going to be crashes. When it's constant crashing over and over and over again, they can't stop crashing. That's when I start to be like, okay, we need to calm it down. I'm fine with the big one or two because that's going to happen in Super Speedway Racing. It used to be a thing where like there's going to be a big one almost every race, or it's going to be late in the race when it happens. And then maybe sometimes you get just a shit show of a race like the 2002 Daytona 500 where you get multiple wrecks in a race and it would be craziness. But now we're getting races where they're just wrecking all the time and it's taking out every car in the field. The summer race at Daytona last year, if it went green and the lightning didn't strike, how many cars would have been left? There weren't many cars left. Last year's Talladega playoff race, the 1,000 Bulbs 500, not many cars were left at the end of that thing. Like they wrecked like 50 times during the race. So it's not really the package's fault; it's the driver's fault because they're blocking runs that they're getting because they're so big and you can't block them. But like in the end, it's just too big of runs, and it comes from the package. But I think the drivers need to be aware, but they're not going to learn. That's the thing. So like it's just crazy. What Super Speedway Racing has become since 2017. I really think pre 2017 plate racing was all right. Like we got some shit shows here and there, but it wasn't like every single race. Now since 2017, the 500 was a crash fest. You go and look at the Coke Zero 400 from 2017. That was a crash fest. Look at the Alabama 500 from 2017. That was a crash fest. The 2018 Daytona 500. The 2018 Coke Zero 400. And then you look at last year. It had, the 2019 Daytona Summer Race. The 2019 Talladega Playoff Race. So, like, it just seems like as of late the drivers are in over their heads and they're wrecking all the time and stuff. So, it's interesting to think about what Super Speedway Racing has gone to. But that's what it is. So I think I've gone on enough of a rant for now. So Daytona 500 this week. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's nothing like we saw here today. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you guys for the next